fast, call it high speed. I've been working hard, yeah, I've been working nightly. If you think you'll win, not likely. I be taking shots, yeah, cold-blooded, icy. Watching numbers grow is what I call sightseeing. In the front row, run it up when they hype me. The following grows, they know how to ignite me. Call me CEO, I've been running right, see. And I ain't playing games, I create my own lane, making pleasure out of pain, turning losses into gains. I'm the boss, I'm making change. I've been rocking this exchange, popping off and risking things, gonna make a f***ing name.
As it is. The risks involved must be controlled, and the primary method of control is the hot work permit system. No hot work should ever be carried out on board ship without a hot work permit.
Excuse me, Captain.
Come on in, folks.
got some
Have a seat.
business.
Come on in, have a seat. How can I help you?
We have a problem out on the out on the elevator. We had energized the hydraulic system and developed a good-sized leak on it. I had to shut the elevator down on the starboard side.
Is this going to interfere with our cargo operations in the upcoming port?
Yeah, we have no use of the starboard hydraulic plant at this time.
I think the first step we should take is to all go down and look at it together.
Okay, let's do that.
The procedures that lead up to issuing a hot work permit are designed to ensure that only essential hot work is authorized, and that if permitted, the hot work will be carried out as safely and as free of risk as possible.
This is the area here, Captain.
To achieve this, a thorough risk assessment precedes the issuing of a hot work permit, carried out by the master, the chief engineer, and the permit authorizing officer, usually the first officer.
Into the space below, which is the ballast tank. Be right about in this location here.
Is there any way we can remove this and take it down to the engine room machine shop for repair there?
No, we can't do that, sir. The hydraulic line is welded in place.
Is there any way we can perform a patch or repair by cold work by putting just a patch on it right here?
No, we're dealing with a high-pressure hydraulic line. We're going to have to do some welding.
Okay, so is this system totally isolated?
Yes, it has, Captain. We blanked off both sides of the pipe. We purged it out and flushed it out, and we locked out and tagged out the machinery.
Okay, I guess the only thing we gotta do now is do a proper risk assessment, so let's go back up to my office and discuss it. Okay, fellas, we've deduced that we have to do the repair job in place. We can't detach the pipe and take it to the engine room machine shop. So what we have to do now is do a risk assessment, look at all the problems we could possibly encounter. Then I'll have to send a message to the company to get permission to do this. So why don't we start off by opening up these blueprints and taking a look at the tank. We want to look to see if any of these...
The first decision that must be made is what constitutes hot work. Various national and international regulatory bodies, such as the U.S. Coast Guard and the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, ISGOT, the International Safety Guide for Oil Tankers and Terminals, and the International Maritime Organization, IMO, issue their own publications that define hot work. The ship's own safety management system will also define it. If in doubt, you must consult your own safety documentation for a detailed definition. In general, all work that involves the generation of heat, sparks, flame, and arcing will fall into this category. This includes riveting, welding, burning, grinding, drilling, and metal chipping. In addition, grit blasting, any electrical work, and the use of non-intrinsically safe electrical equipment, for example, an electric saw, is defined as hot work on board some ships. This may depend on whether the proposed work is to be carried out inside or outside the main machinery spaces or other authorized hot work areas. This condition applies to all vessels, but it is most critical on board crude oil, gas, or product tankers, oboes, and bulk carriers. The master will check if the proposed work falls within the definitions in force on board your ship before he agrees to the issuing of a hot work permit. If you are involved in any way in the proposed hot work, you should always consult your ship's safety management system, such as the Procedures and Arrangements Manual, to verify the requirements of a hot work permit. The next question that must be answered is the proposed hot work necessary? Or could it be postponed until the ship enters a repair yard? Or could it be substituted with cold work?
Do you think if we go into that tank area...
In normal operating conditions, the master of the ship must decide the answer to these questions in consultation with the chief engineer and with all those responsible for seeing that the job is carried out safely.
We may also have some problems within the tank that we may have to address.
Okay, so the leak could be well up at the top of the tank, so we might have to fill out a...
If the job is necessary and cannot be postponed or substituted, the safest procedure must be agreed upon. This involves a thorough risk assessment, leading to a set of measures that either eliminate the risks or reduce them as much as possible, including such unlikely items as removing aluminum ladders from the area. If the master agrees to the hot work being carried out, this decision must be conveyed to the operators or the charterers of the vessel for their approval. Only if this approval is obtained can the hot work be authorized by the master. In some ports and repair yards, a marine chemist or an OSHA representative must also agree to the issuing of a hot work permit. In U.S. ports, the local Coast Guard may also have to be consulted.
Can hot work be done
Before a master authorizes any hot work outside the authorized hot work areas, for example, the main machinery spaces, he will consider any national or international regulations and port or terminal regulations that may prescribe special operating requirements. For example, on board a tanker, he will check that hot work will not take place while laden, nor during bunkering, cargo or ballast movements, or while tank cleaning, gas freeing, purging, or inerting is taking place. These are operations that can produce dangerous flammable vapors, even in open spaces.
Right now,
Once the timing and duration of the hot work is established and safely scheduled, the method of carrying out the work is agreed upon. The master will then appoint one person to be responsible for supervising the work and another to be responsible for its safe execution. It is most important that these two areas of responsibility are separate and clearly understood by all concerned. The master can now authorize the issuing of a hot work permit to cover the job under review.
Okay, fellows, that takes care of the checklist. What I want to know now is what are we going to do with the fire watches?
We will probably have to establish a fire watch within the tank. And if we do set up a fire watch...
The content of a recognized hot work permit is determined by national and international regulations. The permit will typically specify the time and date of its validity. This is normally limited to the same day and to the working hours of the person made responsible for its supervision. It will give a precise description of the work, including the equipment and materials to be used. It will describe the precise location of the work. It will also specify the preparation work that must be undertaken before the job can begin. This will involve testing the atmosphere for the presence of combustible vapors or liquids. The permit will state what measures must be taken to ensure that the area of work is made safe by isolating it from other areas where combustible material may be present. It will also specify special conditions, such as a certification by a marine chemist, and the additional fire protection measures that must be carried out before, during, and after the hot work. Finally, it will have a section that will require the designated responsible personnel to sign off the job on its completion. The details of preparation work prescribed in the hot work permit may vary, of course, in relation to the location of the hot work. These will differ if the hot work is to be carried out on deck, on pipe work, or in an enclosed space. For example, there is a recommended general separation distance of 35 feet or 10 meters. If the location is classified as an enclosed space, an additional entry into enclosed spaces permit must be obtained as one of the conditions stipulated on the hot work permit. The hot work permit is completed in duplicate. One copy is held on file, and one is placed at the location of the work.
Billy, put one fire extinguisher here. Put the other one over here.
To see how the system works in practice, let us follow two jobs on board a tanker involving hot work. One to be carried out in a deck area, and the other in an enclosed space. On deck, under international regulations, cargo and slop tanks within a radius of at least 30 meters around the working area must be cleaned, and any hydrocarbon vapor content reduced to less than 1% by volume. They must then be inerted. All other cargo tanks in the cargo area must be inerted with openings closed. Check that adjacent ballast tanks and compartments are either gas-free or inerted. Tanks containing slops should be kept closed and must be more than 30 yards or meters from the work area.
Why don't you set the fire extinguisher off to the side there and get yourself ready?
Okay.
Excuse me, fellas. Is everything ready?
Pipelines and valves, which run to and from the system to be worked on, should be disconnected from it, and the remaining system blanked off before hot work starts. The item to be worked on should be cleaned and gas-freed to safe hot work standards. Heating coils should be opened, flushed, and inerted prior to hot work. In an enclosed space, hot work must only be carried out in accordance with the requirements of an entry into enclosed space permit, except in an emergency. The entry permit, as stipulated in the ISGOT guidelines, will require the enclosed space to be thoroughly ventilated to ensure that the oxygen level reads 21% by volume with no flammable gases present significantly above 1% LFL. Ventilation must continue while the hot work is in progress. Adjacent areas to the enclosed space must be made gas-free to hot work standards and kept inerted or filled with water.
Got it?
All interconnecting pipes to other compartments should be flushed through with water, drained, vented, and isolated from the compartment where hot work is to be carried out. A fire watch must attend throughout the work with adequate portable firefighting equipment and, where applicable, with a charged fire hose. The fire watch should be aware of the inherent hazards of the work site and the work itself. Be familiar with the facilities and hot work procedures for sounding the alarm in the event of a fire. Ensure that the prescribed safe conditions are maintained during the hot work operation, including disabling any permanent fire protection installation in the immediate vicinity. And stop the work if unsafe conditions develop. The fire watch should not have any other operational duties. If adjacent spaces, which are not inerted, contain combustible material that cannot be removed, a fire watch must be established there, too. So far, we have discussed the subject of hot work permits relating to normal operating conditions. A special situation exists in ship repair yards, where it is often the safety officer of the repair yard or an independent marine chemist who is responsible for issuing the hot work permit. That means they are responsible for ensuring that the conditions in which hot work is carried out meet all the safety requirements. However, even in this situation, the ship's officers remain ultimately responsible for their ship's safety. So they should also inspect any hot work being done on board. It is also good practice to countersign all work permits issued by the yard.
Okay, Captain, the LVL is 0. The oxygen is 20.8.
Okay. Okay, fellas, I guess it's safe to go ahead and start the hot work. Go ahead and get started.
Once safe conditions have been achieved and the preparation work completed, hot work can begin. The hot work operator is responsible for strictly following the conditions given in the hot work permit. He must use the equipment safely and wear all the necessary personal safety protection. The work must be carried out safely to ensure that lives and property are not endangered. The operator should normally wear welding helmet, handheld shield or goggles with a suitable transparent eyepiece that provides protection from ultraviolet radiation, leather working gloves, apron, and long-sleeve natural fiber boiler suit or other approved protective clothing. Safety shoes must be worn to protect from particles of hot metal or slag. When arc welding, the operator must ensure that this is done at the lowest humidity possible and that no water can reach him or the area where the work is carried out. In effect, he must do everything possible to reduce the risk of suffering an electric shock, for example, by being insulated from all hot parts of the work. Also, when changing electrodes, the electrode holder must be isolated from the supply. In the case of gas welding or cutting, the operator must ensure that valves and hoses do not leak, and that the back pressure valves operate correctly, and that the pressures of the acetylene gas and oxygen supply are set in a safe working ratio. Ideally, gas bottles should be kept isolated on the weather deck, with hoses laid to the location of the job. Hot work permits will specify the type of fire watch that must be posted in the affected areas and the method of communication to be used. The fire watch must ensure that adequate firefighting equipment is at hand and must keep an eye on any personnel who may enter the area transporting flammable material. The fire watch should be maintained for half an hour after the hot work is completed, so that any smoldering can be detected and dealt with immediately. The appointed responsible officer in charge of safety should inspect the hot work being carried out at least once during the validity period of the hot work permit. This video has shown the care and attention to detail which must be paid to the safety issues relating to hot work. In certain situations, these issues can create a complex set of conditions which must be met prior to work starting. For this reason, if you're involved in any hot work, always consult your ship's Safety Management System manual and strictly follow the instructions given by the supervising officer. In summary, reducing the chance of dangerous incidents relating to hot work means that the senior officers on board must strictly follow the national and international regulations and guidelines when considering the issue of a hot work permit. Equally, it means that those responsible for carrying out the hot work should never do so without authorization and must strictly observe the conditions laid down in the hot work permit. Finally, a list of practical checks you can make just to be sure. Have the tanks in the vicinity been cleaned properly? Have the pipes leading to and from the location of hot work been isolated, cleaned, and inerted? Have the adjacent areas to the location of hot work been cleared of combustible material? Is the equipment to be used in good working order and free from damage? And is there a fire watch posted on the other side of that bulkhead or below? Can you think of anything else that could conceivably result in an unintentional fire or explosion if you carry out your intended hot work? Now you can start, but do not stop thinking safety first. For further information, check out the companion training guide provided with this video.